Welcome to Collecting Chaos. My name is James, and today we're going to talk about things you can do to make your comic books last longer. So, what exactly can you do to make your comics last longer? Well, there are basically four levels of things that you can do, and the first is preservation. Now, preservation for a comic is really easy. You take a soft cloth when you get a comic, and you wipe it down the cover. And if it's an older comic, you wipe down the cover with a soft cloth. And then you take a soft brush and you wipe the inside pages to make sure there's no dirt or grit in them. Then you put it in some sort of protective sleeve. Now, this protective sleeve can be an acid-free paper envelope. Yeah, that would work. Manila folder, that would work because it's acid-free. Polyethylene or polypropylene bags with a backing board. Uh, Mylar sleeves, or if you are so inclined, you can send them away and get them professionally slabbed. Notice I didn't say graded, I said slabbed, because you don't have to have those comics graded when you send them in to the grading companies. You can just request them to be slabbed and they'll do that. At least they used to. I don't know if they still do or not. Now, if you're going to go the polyethylene, polypropylene route, you're going to have to change the bags periodically, and probably every 3 to 5 years you should change your bags. I've heard it all. I've heard people tell me, I've had these comic books in these bags for 30 years, and then the comic is just the same as when I put it in there. And yeah, I've got some comics like that. I shouldn't, but I do. The problem is the bags start sticking together because they're deteriorating. The bags do deteriorate over time. So, yeah, you got to replace them every now and then. The backing boards, you need to replace them occasionally too. When you go to replace your bag, inspect the board. If the board has ink bleed from the comic, toss the board or use it for something else, replace the board. This generally only happens with the cheaper boards. If you buy something like a halfback or a fullback from, or the equivalent from some of the other companies, uh, you won't have any trouble. You don't have to worry too much about it. The boards will last for probably 20, 25 years without trouble. That's longer than most people keep their comics. Not everybody's like me and has comics that they've had for 35, 40 years or longer. Mylar, you don't have to change it. And if you use the 4mm Mylar, you don't really need a backing board either. So you can get away without that. Uh, 2mm is sufficient to protect the comic and use a backing board with it. That's what I do for most of the ones that I have in Mylar. Matter of fact, that's what I do with all the ones I have in Mylar that are not in 4mm sleeves. And I do have some comics in 4mm sleeves that I didn't put a backing board in because I can hold it from the bottom and it's staying straight up with no problem. So that's your first line of defense. But there's something with that. Put them in a cool, dark place. You want to store them in a cool, dark environment, preferably one without bugs. But you do that because a light will damage comics. It's a proven fact. That's all there is to it. Next, we'll talk about conservation. This is the next step into making your comics last longer. Now, conservation can include various types of dry cleaning, wet cleaning, uh, minor tear seals using Japanese rice paper or mulberry paper. Tengojo is what we generally use. Uh, or archival tape, which is what I like to use. Now, archival tape is reversible. That's why it falls under conservation. And I know CGC and I think CBCS will not ding you for using archival tape unless you've done a bad job of it. You so, and in extreme cases of conservation, you might want to go into leaf casting, and that's about the furthest thing. But the main thing to remember about conservation is anything you do to the comic has to be reversible. You have to, if you've done something to it, you have to be able to take it away, put the comic back to its normal shape. The only difference with this is you don't worry too much about it if the conservation includes cleaning, because you're not going to put back. I mean, you can't make the comic book unclean. Well, I guess you could. There are people that think all comic books are unclean, but that's besides the point. You can't put the creases back in the comic. However, if you have pressed it improperly, they will most definitely come back. So conservation best done to people that have an idea of what they're doing. But if you want to experiment with it with low-grade comics and then get better and better, that's fine. Go for it. No problem at all. Next, we have repair. Repair can go two ways. It can be conservative or conservation type repairs, and restorative type repairs. Restorative type repairs are things that you do to the comic, and repairs in general are things you do to the comic to make it present nicely or better than its normal grade. So you're effectively trying to get it at a grade bump by doing these things. And this does include cleaning. This does include pressing. This does include spine roll removal. All of that goes under repair as far as I'm concerned. Nothing really wrong with any of those three items. They are not reversible generally, except for like pressing and spine removal. Those can be reversible if done incorrectly, meaning you didn't leave it in the press long enough, you didn't do it properly. But repair can also include using tape on a comic. Big no-no. Now, I'm not talking archival tape. I'm talking about Scotch tape. Because this, most grading companies, and myself included, consider amateur restoration. So don't do it. Repairs, minor repairs using the proper materials, fully reversible and should fall under conservation. Repairs that are not done professionally or not done properly fall under restoration, and they can actually hurt a comic. Now, repair also, this is where I'm going to put using bleaching agents. And I'm talking about like hydrogen peroxide and others that will actually make the comic look whiter, but could have long-term effects on the comics. Since we've just started recently doing this, we don't know for sure what it's going to do to the comic in 20 years. It includes using light, blue lights in particular. This is a type of repair to the comic. What you're trying to do is you're trying to remove something that shouldn't be there. And this is where repair starts dropping down into the restoration area. Restoration, which is the last ditch category. To me, restoration should only be done to a book that is beyond conservation. The only way to make this book last longer is to restore it. And restoration is when you start using these non-reversible techniques, like the light boxes, like the hydrogen peroxide, which hydrogen peroxide is an acid. It's a very mild acid, but it is an acid, and it can damage your comics if you don't get it out of there. Most people say, well, it evaporates out. Does it? We don't know that. I know people that would use hydrogen peroxide on cards that actually deteriorated the card over the years. It made it worse in the long run. And I'm talking 10, 15 years later, the card looks worse. Take it for what it's worth. I don't know that that's going to happen with your comic book, but I'm not doing it to any of mine. I'm not putting hydrogen peroxide on my comics unless I know for a fact I can get it back out of there. It includes washes and just anything you can think of that will take the comic from one state to another. Leaf casting is used in restoration. It's used in conservation, but it's also used in restoration. And one of the other things that I'm going to put under restoration, and I'm probably going to get some flack for it because people are going to disagree, when you marry two comics together, in other words, you take the cover from this comic and put it on this comic so that you have a complete comic, that is restoration. People are going to disagree and say, no, it's conservation, but I'm sorry, it isn't. If it was conservation, you would have two comics that you were working on, not one. If you take a page from another comic because it doesn't have a cover and add it into a comic that does have, that's almost complete but missing that page, that is restoration. Or you take that page and you put it in there because the other one had a coupon clipped, that's restoration. People are going to disagree with me. I'm okay with that. You have your right to disagree with me. A lot of people are going to say, no, it's conservation. And I'm sorry, but I'm just not going to agree with that. If you replace something in a comic that wasn't originally there, it's additive, it's restoration. That's my definition. Others may have their own opinions, and I'm okay with that. I like people that have their own opinions. These are my opinions. Restoration will often use methods that are not reversible. Yes, you put the page in, you leaf cast it in, whatever, it's reversible. You can take it back out. That makes it conservation in some people's eyes. Just not in mine. Restoration will also include ink or color touch. Now, color touch can be done in a lot of different ways. Professionally done color touches generally use acrylics. And the reason they use acrylics is because it's reversible. You can take the acrylics back out of the page. So, yeah, that's restoration for you. You're trying to make the book look as good as it can be or new. If you're going for a comic that's in really bad shape and you want it to look brand new again, that is restoration. And a lot of people frown on it. Now I'm going to give my opinions on the different types of things that are done to comics to prolong their life. Preservation, absolutely, 100% agree. This is a good way to go. This is the best way to go if you don't have any underlying problems with the comic. Conservation, 100% agree with it. It is the ultimate best way to preserve a comic that is so far gone that it starts needing things like deacidification. Go for it, do it. Conservation is a great tool. Repair, when it's something small, like removing a spine roll, doing a tear seal or a spine split seal, or even reattaching a cover, go for it. Stay away from the stuff that can't be reversed, though, because that's not good. Restoration, in extreme cases, on rare comics, on rare and valuable comics, absolutely do it. It's worth it. But on comics that are more common, that aren't worth a whole lot of money, stay away from restoration. It's not needed. Would I restore an X-Men #1? No, I'd conserve it. I would consider it conserving it because it's not a particularly rare comic, regardless of what people try to tell you. X-Men 1, Spider-Man 1, Amazing Fantasy 15, Fantastic Four #1. These are not rare books. They're not easy to find, but they can be found, and Some dealers have 4, 5, 6 copies of them. If they have that many copies, it's not rare. Action Comics #1, that's rare. Even though it went into multiple printings, it's rare. Superman #1 is rare. Detective 27 is rare. These are rare comics. Should they be restored? Only if they're getting ready to fall apart. If they are beyond conservation methods, absolutely they should be restored. That's my feeling on these 4 categories. Make of it what you will. It's 601, half a dozen of the other. I like comic books. I love comic books. I've been dealing with comic books my whole life, and I'm not talking as a dealer, but I'm talking about as a collector, as a reader, as a buyer, as a seller. My whole life, since I was about 5 years old, have been around comics. That's a long time. I like to think sometimes my opinions matter. That's what I have for you today. Just my thoughts on the ways to preserve and extend the life of your comics. Absolutely, the best possible way is preservation. Don't let it get bad in the first place. You won't have any trouble. We'll see you next video, and in the meantime, have yourself a great week. I'll see you Monday. No, this is Monday. Guess I'll see you Wednesday. I don't know what day it is. Take care, everybody. Have yourself a great week, and we will see you on Wednesday. In the meantime, make sure you check out the short videos I drop every single day at 8:30 a.m. Bye.